Hindi mo muna yung aircon dyan kasi ang init. Ito. Ito. Alive na? Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another live streaming of Basic Transfer Pricing. I would like to say thank you po sa ating mga subscribers. Umabot na po tayo ng 414 subscribers. Thank you very much. And I would like to shout out also sa mga waiting na po sa atin, no? Mga viewers. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. No? And we will continue with our discussion on the case of Coca-Cola versus the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, US po, no? United States po itong case na to. And we started with our discussion. The first part of our discussion deals mostly with the strategies of the Coca-Cola on how Coca-Cola make strategies to improve its marketing strategies and also on its development of products. So tonight, we will continue with our discussion and we end up on the marketing and distribution of the Coca-Cola, how it market and distribute its products all over the world. And we will continue tonight with consumer marketing because the marketing distribution started with consumer marketing. Okay. Why do we have to study this marketing and distribution? Because these are the functions of Coca-Cola, and along with it, there are transfer pricing issues. Actually, yung mga nabasa ko po dito sa case ng Coca-Cola, I have learned so many things. No? I have learned so many things na if you just read, no? If you just read the transfer pricing guidelines, di mo siya maintindihan. But if you try to read transfer pricing cases, mas lalawak yung pag-iintindi mo about transfer pricing. But of course, every transfer pricing issue, every transfer pricing case is unique. Pero kung titingnan mo talaga how the transfer pricing works, i-apply mo siya sa cases. No? And this case ng Coca-Cola is, actually, ito pa lang, ma-master mo, isang case lang. Ano ka na eh, parang well-versed ka na sa transfer pricing. Kasi, ano na eh, may trial, may presentation of evidence, and then may counter, and then may mga issues na na-resolve, may mga issues na na-present, may mga counter na justification yung parties, no? So, napakaganda. And para sa akin talagang the transfer pricing, ano talaga siya ng mga nag-iisip, no? Yung mga matatalino. Kasi hindi ka magkaroon ng transfer pricing issues, no? Kung hindi mo pag-isipan talaga. At saka yung mga scheme na ginagamit sa transfer pricing, talagang multi-layered siya na kung dito ka lang sa isang part, hindi mo maintindihan, but you have to go through the whole view, the whole picture, or you have to look at the big picture para maintindihan mo, no? So let's now go. Ano ba yung nangyari dito sa Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola is the most, next to the English language daw na okay, yun daw ang Coca-Cola. Bakit? Kasi kilala siya all over the world, no? Kahit siguro maliit na bata, alam yung Coke. No? At saka, kailan nag-umpisa ang Coke sa buong mundo? 1886, no? Imagine, 135 years old, no? Na-sustain at saka lumaki pa siya. So, ibig sabihin talagang may strategy talaga na ginagawa yung Coca-Cola to maintain its market share, no? Kung just imagine na maraming nagsusulputan, dumadating, umaalis na mga brand ng drinks, pero the Coca-Cola is still there, no? I just would like to answer, may mga nagko-comment sa akin na use English, please. Ang problema na nosebleed ako sa sa English, at saka sometimes na nawawala yung thought ko or the ideas in my mind pagka puro English, no? So, Taglish na lang po. Sorry for those na hindi nakakaintindi ng Tagalog. I'm sorry for you. Pero, gamay ko kasi ang Tagalog eh. At saka, mas nai-express ko. I can express well kung Tagalog. Kasi pag English, parang yung term, parang hindi ko ma-feel in my heart yung word ng English, no? Mas nararamdaman ko yung emotional kasi ako na klase ng tao eh. Mas gusto ko yung nararamdaman ko yung sinasabi ko, no? Pag sinasabi ko kasi ng English, parang wala lang, parang routine lang. Pero pag sinasabi ko ng Tagalog, ramdam ko talaga yung sinasabi ko. And I can express well in Tagalog. So anyway, I'll try to translate what I'm saying. I'll try to translate sa Tagalog. I try to translate in English. Kaso lang mapapatagal tayo lalo, no? Okay? It takes longer kung magta-translate pa ako. Anyway, marami naman nakakaintindi rin ng English. So most of the time, siguro gagawin ko lang most of the time, English po. Okay. Consumer marketing. Now let's go to the marketing and distribution. How Coca-Cola distribute its marketing. No? Very important po to, especially pagka we are dealing already with the transfer pricing audit. Why? Because the transfer pricing deals with the functions. And what are these marketing and distribution? These are included in the functions of the related parties that comprises the group of Coke companies. No? Excuse me, may nangangagat eh. Sandali lang po ah. Excuse lang talaga. Parang may nangangagat sa akin na lagam. Okay, so let's continue with our discussion. And let's now go to the consumer marketing strategy of Coca-Cola. No? Coca-Cola is a multinational group of companies. Okay. How does Coca-Cola market the product through consumer marketing? Through advertising and other messages directed toward the individuals who are the final consumers of its products. No? So you can just imagine, or you just know, if you are trying to look at the advertisement of Coca-Cola, no? There are times na it is directed to the family, no? Family occasion. So it is directed to the individual. Ramdam, no? Felt by the individual. The company aimed to create demand by maintaining and exploiting its brands. No? So that's their marketing strategy. Okay. So most important brand is Coca-Cola, the soft drinks, no? The Coke, the Coke Red. the Diet Coke, the Coke Zero, underlines and extensions. No? Trademark Coke products accounted for more than 50% of the company profits. Or you can just imagine in the past lecture how Coca-Cola made money or profits from its brands. No? And in fact, what is the issue in this case? The assessment of the U.S. Commissioner of Internal Revenue for 2007 to 2009, they assessed Coca-Cola of 9 billion profits, no, as understated royalty payments in its Latin America sales, no, which comprises 85% of the sales of Coke. Okay, so the company's core brand consisted of trademark Coke, Fanta, Sprite, underlines and extensions, no. So these products are present in many households. These core brands accounted for about 85% of the total net revenue and 86% of total profits for the 7 supply points at issue. No? So what are these? The Red, Coke Red, the Diet Coke, the Coke Zero, Fanta, no, Sprite. Okay. Consumer marketing began with TCCC, the Coca-Cola Company, which created a uniform system for all global branding. No? So the Coca-Cola in all parts of the world are the same. No? Kaya nga global branding. With a few exceptions, mainly in Canada. TCC was the registered legal owner of all worldwide trademarks related to trademark Coke, Fanta, Sprite, underlines, and extensions. For trademark Coke products, these trademarks covered the Spencerian script, the dynamic ribbon, the red and white color palette, and the contour bottle shape. So ito yung the distinguishing feature of their product. Spencerian script, dynamic ribbon, no? Yung ano ba yung ano niya? Yung sulat, di ba? No? And then may parang gumagano na parang ribbon sa ano niya. The red and white color palette ng Coke and the contour bottle shape. TCC sustained and perpetuated each global brand by maintaining rigorous standards for its core visual design elements and messaging. The standards provided detailed guidance that ensured a consistent look and feel for all global marketing. May shout out, Hari?
Wala pa po, madam.
How many viewers?
6 viewers po.
Okay, dapat tinext natin pala sila, Banji eh. Text mo nga. Oh,
Chat ko na lang, madam, dito.
okay. Sige, mag-chat ka dyan.
Apo. Nag-invite mo.
Oh, sige. Kasi sayang, no? Sayang. They will learn a lot from this. Even if you are not a CPA, even if you are a businessman or whatever, you can learn a lot from transfer pricing. Why? What can you learn about transfer pricing? The economic conditions and the business strategies, no? That you can apply. When the opportunity comes into your life, you can apply, you can look back on the strategies of these companies and apply it on your own. Okay, so TCC maintained for its global brand a brand vision and architecture that articulated what the brand aspired to stand for in consumers' mind. No? So when you close your eyes, you just imagine Coca-Cola. No? You can remember the taste and also the brand. No? The brand vision included a visual identity system, VIS. No? Kaya so naka-strategize talaga ang Coke, no? A brand strategy, core design principles, and a detailed marketing strategy. TCC specified requirements concerning the use of existing designs, the Coke logo, and the Spencerian script, as well as instructions for the creation of new materials. TCC uploaded all permissible designs and model photographs to an online database called the Design Machine. May ano tayo kung na Coke. Akin na nga yung Coke, Hari. Ayun o. Okay. For better, ano. Tingnan nyo ha. Oo. No sugar. Ito yung sugar. Ito yung sinasabi niya na Spencerian, no? Parang script, ito yung pagkakasulat niya. Tsaka tingnan mo yung parang ribbon, no? The dynamic ribbon, ito, no? The dynamic ribbon. The red and white color palette, yan, red and white. And then the contour bottle shape, no? Yung, kaya nga yung pag sexy ka, Coca-Cola body ka, no? Um, So, ito yung distinguishing feature ng Coca-Cola. No, nasusustain niya ito. And ito yung sinasabi niya, there is a visual identity system. No? The brand strategy, core design principles, and of course, sinama pa doon, the marketing strategy. TCC uploaded all permissible designs and model photographs to an online database called the Design Machine. Okay. It provided instructions concerning appropriate advertising copy, how to write an ad in the brand voice, and imaging, how photographs should display condensation and ice. No? Major deviations from these standards required explicit review and approval by TCCC. No? So they're very strict about the branding. Global marketing campaigns were designed by TCCC in Atlanta with input from Servco. Who are these Servco? The group of related companies that deals with the operations, no, yung together with the supply ko, yung mga supply. Sila yung nagbibigay sa Coca-Cola bottlers, no? So personnel in various markets. A global campaign package typically included a brand representation accompanied by suggested visual images and advertising messages. No, in our next episode, kasi matagal pa to, no? Our topic may be up to 5 episode, no? So next time I will make an organizational chart how this the structural design of this Coke, including the organizational start and the relationship between the groups, just like Servco from the TCC, the organizational group, and then the business units, and then the butlers. No? So I can show it to you. Its campaign had a core creative idea or underlying conceptual structure that expressed what the brand stood for the marketplace. Why is it that these functions are very important when we study transfer pricing? Because the functions or what or how the company operates, the economic activities are very important in transfer pricing. You can just imagine that what are the 5 comparability factors in transfer pricing. Just a review for those who are new. What are the principle of transfer pricing that we are going to follow? The principle of transfer pricing is that the related party transactions or the transactions of the group should be similar or at par with that of the transactions of the independent party or those who are doing business not in a group but as a independent business. No? Why? Because according to the principle, the arm's length principle, which is the principle accepted internationally as the principle to be adopted in the related company dealings, is that the true transactions is that of the independent party because there is no element of control. So the group of Coca-Cola, no, they have many subsidiaries. They have independent butlers, and they also have these companies who are related parties who are their subsidiaries, and sometimes their related entities, no, that operates in different parts of the world. No? So these marketing strategies very important in transfer pricing because the strategies itself, we have to analyze whether they are arm's length. No? So that's the purpose of transfer pricing. No? And the heart or the core of transfer pricing is comparability. That's why when we want to prove, halimbawa or example, this Coca-Cola, if we want to prove that the transactions of Coca-Cola is arm's length, we have to look for a comparable, independent parties who are also engaged in the same activity of Coca-Cola, and then we have to compare. Because the heart of transfer pricing is comparability. And what are we going to compare? Also the strategies, no? The business strategies. And what are the 5 comparability factors? We have the nature and characteristics of the goods or services, whether tangible or intangible. We have the functions, assets, and risks. No? So we're dealing with the functions. Um, in this case, the expert, the industry expert that recommend to the IRS for the assessment of this case, no, the Coca-Cola, the recommendation of the expert here is to is for the IRS or the Commissioner of Internal Revenue to adopt a certain method, no? So for the comparability analysis, what we are going to compare, no? So we have the functions, assets, and risk. All through, we also have the business strategies, the economic conditions, and also the contractual terms, no? So in this case, there are contractual terms here in Coca-Cola that are not really identified, no? So as we go along, you will notice how the Coca-Cola was, because in this case, the court, no? The court that decided is the Court of Tax Appeal, no? So the court was on the side of the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Talo dito yung Coca-Cola, no? So because bakit sila natalo dito? Some of their terms or contractual terms are not so well defined, no? Parang kulang. And there are financial statements also that na very crucial, reports that are very crucial but wala, no? And meron sila sinasabi dito na invoice splitting, no? So my learnings here is that if you can justify everything, there should be no issues that left unexplained or undocumented, because the moment na meron kang allegations but it is not properly documented, then talo ka na pagdating sa korte, no? So in this case, yan lang siguro yung talo ng Coca-Cola because some of its contracts are not well defined, kulang, and cannot be executed, no? Mga importante pa. And there is what we call as invoice splitting, and also yung mga financial statements of the subsidiaries that are very crucial, hindi nakasama doon sa consolidated ng financial statements. Okay, so kung balikan natin, the most controversial case is that of the GlaxoSmithKline. Ganun din yung that cause also yung natalo din ang GlaxoSmithKline because of that also, no? So just a reminder to our mga accountants ngayon, no, internal accountants, and also yung mga practitioners natin, ng mga tax consultants, no, malapit na tayo for our BAR Form 1709. So take note that during the transfer pricing audit, very important is the documentation, because once you failed to substantiate your allegations, then that's the reason na pagdating na sa korte, talo kayo. The court will decide in favor of the tax authority. just like what happened in this Coke, no? Okay, so binibigyan ko lang kayo ng overview so that masasabi nyo na saan ba yung patutunguhan ng discussions natin, no? We're just discussing about the strategy of the Coke, which is a very important comparability factor, no? The business strategies. Okay, so what is this strategy? This is the marketing, consumer marketing. Other global campaigns centered on the company's sponsorship of major sporting events. No? So kasama din sila sa mga the major sporting events na kilala. So nandun sila. At least, ano sila yung visible, no? In the world. Including the Olympics and the World Cup. You can just imagine that's Olympics and that's worldwide. TCCC negotiated the financial terms of these sponsorships. May bayad to, and mahal, no? You have to pay for these sponsorships and set parameters for recommended slogans, graphics, and visual images. Of course, when you have your sponsor, it is also that your slogans, graphics, and visual images related also to the sports. And of course, it will promote your product. TCCC then created a package of promotional and advertising material that could be used on a global scale in associations with these events. So these are strategies. Just try to imagine. One witness estimated that this toolkit gave local marketers 70% to 80% of the solution, but allowed them space to customize the campaign to their local audience. No? Imagine 70 to 80%. So that's very effective. TCCC made these global campaign materials available to its marketing personnel around the world. Reminder also to our viewers, you can ask question and we will answer it. Sumagot na ba sila, Banji?
Ako ma'am. Okay daw.
Ano na sila? Tatlo sila doon.
Viewers na tayo.
Ha?
8 viewers.
Oo, kasi tatlo sila doon eh. Okay. The local marketers, and they will also learn, ha? The local marketers, nearly all of whom were employed by Servcos. Sino tong Servcos? Ito yung directly na ano sa butlers no, sa supply, no? Made the initial decision in conjunction with butlers whether to activate a particular campaign in the marketplace. So next week ko ipapakita sa inyo how this Coke, yung parang supply chain niya from ano yung role of the related parties, no? Made the initial decision in conjunction with butlers whether to activate a particular campaign in their marketplace. Just imagine, no? Na talagang pinag-aaralan. Assuming an affirmative answer to that question, they work to customize the global campaign to meet local conditions because sometimes yung local hindi acceptable, yung internationally acceptable sa local, no? So a global ad would be customized, for example, by hiring local actors, no, who spoke the local language, substituting songs and music that would be popular in that country. Kasi mas may dating yung actors or actresses na may ads na kilala in a country kaysa dun sa hindi, no? And avoiding themes and images that might offend local cultural and religious sensitivities. Yes. Especially yung sa pagkain, may mga bawal na pagkain in some countries. So pag yan ang sinama mo sa Coke, then it is not acceptable. Marketing personnel in the Servcos generally took responsibility for marketing material that promoted local brands such as Coat, a Brazilian beverage derived from an Amazon fruit, no? Okay. Wow, no? From fruit, no? Although TCCC generated material for most global campaigns, Servcos often played a leading role in regional marketing efforts. Under the charter model, a business units with a special interest in a particular subject or event often develop platform material including TV ads and point-of-sale promotions that would eventually be shared with other business units. A campaign focused on the Christmas holiday, for example, might be generated by the Mexican Servco A campaign focused on Ramadan might be generated by the Egyptian Servco. A campaign focused on Latin America teens might be generated by the Brazilian Servco, and a campaign focused on a major soccer event might be generated by the Servco in the host country. No? So, iba-iba. In such cases, TCCC would appoint a charter team, handle negotiations with major stakeholders, and coordinate efforts between the charter team and other BUs desiring to use the material. Those other BUs would then adapt the charter campaign to suit their local needs. No? So you can just imagine how Coca-Cola work as a team, no? To develop its brand, to develop strategies. That's why they are very successful. But yun yung sabi sa Tagalog na kahit ano pa man may makakalimutan pa rin, hindi ka talaga ma-perfect, hindi mo talaga ma-perfect, no? Because in this case, parang may mga lapses pa rin sila na nangyari. TCCC provided local marketers with various tools to help them craft local ads and improve local decision making. The Knowledge and Insights Unit, no? You can just imagine, meron silang ganyan. The Knowledge and Insights Unit, K&I, in headquarters performed data analysis about consumer behavior and made this data available to butlers and servcos. Okay, no? So talagang malalim sila mag-aral kasi pati yung consumer behavior. By disseminating monthly brand health performance reports to local managers. Customized marketing designs and tactics were uploaded to the design machine. Spark City, created in 2007, was a compilation of various training and information portals, including Marketing Exchange, CSD Portal, and the DNA of Marketing. These portals supplied local marketers with access to an extensive database of processes and standardized frameworks for marketing each of the company's global brands. Alam nyo, yun yung when I attended yung mga WIPO seminars on arbitration, that's the difference between arbitration and when you go to court. Why when you go to court, all your records will be public. Just like this. Alam ko yung mga strategies nito ng Coke, these are very confidential, no, na hindi siya dinidevolve sa iba. But since you go on trial, then all your records are public. No? So wala na tong copyrights, wala na lahat. This is open to the world na gustong magbasa. Pero if you try to look at itong mga strategies nila na ginagawa, supposed to be these are confidential. But because dumana siya ng korte, nagiging public records na. So that's the difference between you go into arbitration or you go into a regular court, no, na case. Kasi pagka arbitration, private. Pagka sa court na, public, no? So public records, it will be published, no? And you can say no. TCCC provided servcos and butlers with market research tools to help them gauge the success of their advertising efforts. K&I, ito yung Knowledge and Insights Unit. Created protocols and metrics for measuring changes in brand equity, enabling marketers to assess local consumers, brand awareness, and the effectiveness of advertising messages. You cannot find this in managerial books, no? Dito lang. But they develop this internally and they make their own strategies, no? But for transfer pricing purposes, this was divulged because the tax authority conducted a transfer pricing audit. And that's why ang sabi ko sa inyo that the transfer pricing audit is more thorough or more specific or more focused compared to the regular audit. And more documentation, demands on documentation, no? More demands. TCCC packaged these metrics into user-friendly tools such as the marketing variance analysis. No? Ito pa yung unique dito sa case na to. Kasi I highlighted some of my findings when I read the case. No? There are terms na dito mo lang sa case na to maririnig. No? Because bakit nga? because they formulate their own strategies from the marketing, from the yung development ng kanilang concentrates, dito mo lang maririnig, no? So, ito na naman meron silang marketing variance analysis, beverage brand barometer, and consumer beverage landscape, no? So you can just imagine they have their own para gumagawa na sila ng sariling libro nila ng system and processes. These tools were implemented throughout the company's global distribution network, allowing servcos and butlers to spot trends discernible only from a global perspective. No? So that's their strategies. TCCC also provided tools and frameworks for training local marketers. The Integrated Marketing Communication Unit, or IMC, at headquarters developed the curriculum for training marketers around the world. No? IMC maintained an online learning platform, Coca-Cola University, that was used by Servcos to train marketers in the field. No? So IMC, anong IMC? Integrated Marketing Communication. Also supervised the company's contracts with the Olympics, FIFA, which organizes the World Cup, and the National Basketball Association, or the NBA. Ito yung mga games na kilala all over the world. The Servcos generally hired third-party consultants, such as Nielsen, to perform local market research and testing. They delegated to outside creative firms the production of consumer advertisements. Outsourced functions included hiring actors, selecting music, filming commercials, providing voice overs for global marketing materials, and purchasing advertising time in local media. No? Kasi may pera sila no? Outside consultants often convened focus groups to assess whether a new ad hit the desired spot. No? Pati yung mga advertisement talagang mini-measure nila kung naging effective ba. No? TCCC maintained a list of approved agencies such as Ogilvy, with whom it had negotiated master service agreements. No? So take note that when you make transfer pricing study, yung mga sinasabi dito ng mga master service agreements, you have to read that. No? That's part of the transfer pricing documentation. Local managers generally used approved agencies but were permitted to use others if necessary. Consumer marketing budgets were set in the company's annual business plans. Following intense negotiations with local butlers, its BU proposed a marketing budget on a TCC-mandated template. That proposal was reviewed by the OG, the operations group, and ultimately approved by headquarters in Atlanta. Local management generally pegged direct marketing expenses, or DME. Oh, okay. To grow in line with gross profit targets. No? So, inahanap ko itong DME Kala ko distribution and marketing, yun pala direct. No? Direct marketing expenses, or DME. Okay. Wala pang shout out?
Meron po.
Okay. Sige, shout out.
Shoutout po kay Sir Rams, Madrid.
Yes, oo. Tatanong yan siya good evening, Sir Rams Madrid, and thank you for watching. No, nagtatanong yan siya sa Messenger. Okay.
Pati po kay Ma'am Marilyn Seredon.
Oh, si Ma'am Marilyn, very, very, masipag, no? Na entrepreneur, bookkeeper, tax consultant, andyan na lahat, no? Very, yan. Yun yung mga ugali ng mga taong successful, no? Hindi na mimili ng trabaho, basta nandyan, available, then go. No? Meron pa siyang construction hardware companies, no? Okay. So, yung natutunan ko dito, yung DME, direct marketing expenses, no? So, let's now go. Kanina, we were discussing about consumer. Ay, meron pa?
Wala na po.
Oh, so, okay. So we're discussing about consumer marketing. Ngayon, we'll go to trade marketing and distribution. Kasi kanina, how do they reach for their consumer? Ngayon, dito naman, marketing and distribution, how do they distribute? No? The butlers took principal responsibility for trade marketing, that is, communications and other efforts directed towards and undertaken through the retail establishment supermarkets, mom and pop stores. No? So sino yung tina-target nila? No? Para doon yung distribution. Mom and pop stores, bars and restaurants that sold the company's beverages to consumers. Yun, um, sila yung bibili ng mga magtitinda ng mga beverages to consumers, no? So dapat sila yung itatap mo. Why? Because sila yung may direct contact with the consumer. So dapat doon mo idadaan sa kanila yung product mo, no? Trade marketing, often called push marketing, increased consumers' awareness of the company's brands and stimulated consumer demand. It covered a wide range of activities designed to ensure that the company's products were always within arm's reach of desire. No? Kasi even if maganda yung product mo, if hindi naman siya available sa consumer, then hindi siya makakarating sa consumer. But you see to it that you have a good product and at the same time, it reaches the consumer. No? So butlers expended efforts to acquire and retain retail customers, sometimes by creating loyalty programs. Sa totoo lang, I learned so much from this case, no? And also their marketing and other business strategies. To ensure that the company's products were continuously available to consumers, butlers had to manage inventory and ensure timely delivery, no? So yung timely delivery, it reaches the right consumer at the right time. Butlers were responsible for securing advantageous products placement in stores, arranging point-of-sale promotions such as floor decals and end-of-aisles displays. Imagine that. And offering in-store samples of new products. Butlers manage most trade promotions including coupons, product discounts, and digital redemption codes. No? Naalaala ko pa dati, no, nung maliit pa ako, yung may mga promo na yung tansan na pagbukas mo, may kung ano-ano kang makita and then you win prizes. No? Which often carried off holidays and sporting events. Butlers often integrated these retail promotions with the company's global sponsorship activities and consumer marketing themes. In Europe, where third-party distributors delivered most beverages to retailers, butlers sent merchandisers into stores to assure proper product placement and point-of-sale displays. Yung mga merchandisers nila, yun yung nagbabantay ng kanilang product sa mga department stores. No? Pakipatay mo na yung sakit na sa mata. Okay. Responsibility for managing relationships with retail customers was divided among TCC, the Servcos, and the butlers. No? Sila itong mga major na participants sa Coke, no? The TCC, the Servcos, and the butlers. For historical reasons, the relationship with McDonald's was managed directly by the company's chief operating officer at headquarters. Bakit? Kasi yung McDonald's, that is also worldwide, no? So inalagaan nila yan. That's why, along with McDonald's, di ba, pag nagbenta na ang McDonald's ng product niya, kasama na rin yung product ng Coke. TCC Global Customer and Commercial Leadership Group maintained relationship with the system's top 50 customers. Sino yung top 50 customers nila? Ito yung mga international din, no? Including Walmart, Tesco, and 7-Eleven, no? So worldwide na mga customers ito na direct sila sa consumers. So inalagaan ng Coke. Management of smaller multinational accounts was generally shared between the butlers and marketing personnel in the Servcos. The butlers had sole responsibility for managing most customer relationships at the country level. No? Kasi yung butlers, kagaya dito sa Pilipinas, Servcos din yun nandito eh. No? Butlers created marketing plans for key accounts which aligned consumer marketing with point-of-sale marketing. Okay. Kasi tapos na natin i-discuss. We have discussed already the consumer marketing. Butler field service representatives who lived in the residential communities where retailers were located formed closer relationships with mom and pop stores. Ano yung mom and pop stores? Ito yung mga stores na pang-pamilya, no, na nandyan sa mga subdivisions, nandyan sa vicinity, sa community, enabling them to suggest marketing innovations that included colors, plasma TVs, and end-of-aisles displays. No? None of the supply points, apart from the Brazilian and Chilean supply points, had any staff devoted to sales. Through the ServCos, TCC supplied butlers with a variety of tools to assist them with in-store marketing. Marketing professionals at headquarters designed most point-of-sale materials. By accessing the design machine, butlers could secure these images and photographs, then customize them for local consumption. The picture of success, no? Imagine may picture of success. The apparent precursors to right execution daily. Lamok. Ang laki. Okay. So, ano pa? Supply and, ito yung right, basahin ko ulit ha. Kasi the picture of success, imagine ito yung part of their marketing strategies ha. The apparent precursor to right execution daily or RED supplied an ideal image of how a particular store should look to maximize sale of the company's beverages. No? RED, which was developed by Coca-Cola FEMSA in collaboration with the company, provided butlers with recommended point-of-sale materials, suggested price points, inventory management tools, and metrics for measuring the quality of butler execution against set standards. Ito i-relate ko lang to sa RAMO 1-2019 ha, which is the transfer pricing guidelines, transfer pricing audit guidelines in the Philippines. They are also very particular now with the marketing strategies, including distribution po ng products. That's why if you try to look at the requirements po ng RAMO 1-2019, it is also required then there yung supply chain management of the group. No? Okay. So, pasok na pasok, kaya nandito siya sa report. The supply chain management. To encourage impulse purchases, which provided much higher margins than purchases for future consumptions, butlers invested in coolers that were strategically placed in retail outlets. No? So ano yung mga cooler na yan? Kung minsan yung parang box, meron din yung mga cooler na yung parang ref na nakatayo na pula. No? These investments were significant, mahal yun. At one point, coolers represented about 1/3 of CCE's annual capital expenditures. You can just imagine, no? Yung pagbili ng mga coolers na ilalagay mo dun sa mga stores para doon mo ilalagay yung Coke products. Pero sometimes yung iba, hindi Coke products na yung linalagyan na ng iba. Pagdating ng ahente ng Coke, pinapatanggal, no? Okay. So these investments were significant kasi mahal yung mga coolers na yan, no? These coolers were typically used to chill and display the company's beverages exclusively, no? Exclusive. Di pwede yung ilalagay mo dun yung ibang products. About 2/3 of the system's global sales were for immediate consumptions, and coolers were essential in stimulating impulse purchases in warmer climates. No? Kasi in warmer climates, tapos hindi malamig yung Coke, hindi rin masarap, no? The butlers owned all Coca-Cola coolers in retail stores. Large cooler capacity became necessary as the company product line grew to include many non-CSD beverages, no? To incentivize investment in coolers, the company provided financial support to butlers through its Jumpstart program, under which it paid a percentage of the cooler's cost. When negotiating marketing budgets with the company, butlers generally view their cost of purchasing coolers net of the company's subsidy as marketing expenses on their side of the ledger. Butlers also negotiated financial incentives to push sales, no? So aside from mayroon silang mga tools, no, itong mga callers, mayroon din silang financial incentives. Price promotions for the company's beverages were a sensitive subject, and such decisions were generally made jointly by butlers and Servco marketing personnel. For large retailers with greater market power, relationship managers negotiated discounts on targeted product lines. Butlers regularly engage in trade promotions to encourage retailers to give the company's products optimal shelf space. For restaurants and mom-and-pop retailers, butlers promoted Coca-Cola products by supplying in-kind benefits such as collars and Coca-Cola branded awnings and napkins. Okay, so take note that what we are discussing now, pag kayo nang gumagawa for your company, gagawin nyo rin to because these are very specific na explanations po ng mga strategies, mga business strategies ng inyong company which you are going to document and explain in your transfer pricing analysis report. Butlers reflected their marketing expenses in different ways. Ilan na yung viewers natin?
8 viewers po.
Okay. So, depending on local accounting conventions. Pero, doon na sa viewers natin sa actual na sa replay ngayon, 100 plus na yung yung last na sa Coke. Such expenses might be shown as marketing deductions from revenue or as direct marketing expenses. Yun yung DME ha. So take note, direct marketing expenses kasi sometimes ito yung hinahanap ng examiner during transfer pricing audit, no? Yung mga component ng mga ano na yan, ng mga expenses na yan. Or kasi you can just imagine na 1/3 ng kanilang expenses is the callers, no? So you can the examiner will be thinking kung pwede bang outright expense yun i-capitalize pa, no? Okay. Such expenses might be shown as marketing deductions from revenue. So pag marketing deductions siya from revenue or as direct marketing expenses, no? Or they could be included among selling, delivery, and administrative costs. So these are the three options kung ano yung paano mo i-charge or i-claim as deductions yung direct marketing expenses mo. So ito yung three options. It can be marketing deductions from revenue, it can be direct marketing expenses, or it can be included among selling, delivery, and administrative cost. So yan po yung favorite na hahanapin ng examiner. Why? Because there is a rule for that, no? The accounting standards and also the revenue regulation. So depending on the facts and circumstances of the case, mamili ka dyan sa proper options na yan, sa three options, or if not, merong option pa rin na gagawin yung examiner. No? However characterized, they were significant. During 2008, CCA had marketing deductions from revenue of 2.5 billion, an amount equal to 11.5% of its net revenue. You can just imagine, 2.5 billion yung marketing expenses niya. Other butlers showed marketing deduction as high as 18% of their net revenue. So, massive talaga yung marketing. But you can just imagine kung pwede ba lahat na yan, i-direct deductions mo or some of it can be capitalized. Yes, like halimbawa, bumili ka ng collars. At then yung collars na yan, ang life ba niyan is only 1 year kasi in-expense mo na kaagad. So, if it is still available for use for a period of 3 years, then you amortize it for 3 years. No? That is just an example. Number 3 is contractual relationships. Contractual relationships. Kaya in this case, there are contracts na unenforceable. No? During the audit, nakita ng tax authority or ng IRS that some of the contracts executed between the related parties, just like TCC and the Servco or the butlers, no? Unenforceable. Why? Kasi walang consideration. So, ibig sabihin, gawa-gawa lang yun, no? So, during the transfer pricing audit, dun kayo matatalo, especially if your documentation is such that vague, no? Hindi siya clear, no? Or it lacks consideration, that's why it is unenforceable. So yun ang kinatalo dito ng Coke. Understanding the rights and obligations of entities within the Coca-Cola system requires an examination of both written contracts and the parties' course of dealing. Ito pa ang sabi sa amin ng OECD, no, during our study, Advanced Transfer Pricing. Ano sabi ng OECD? When you try to study the contractual terms, also study the actual dealings of the parties if they are following the contracts or if they are enforcing the contract. Because in some cases, the contract is just a formality, but it is not manifested or it is not followed in the actual dealings of the related parties. No? So be very careful. TCCC operated synergistically with its supply point and served co-affiliates, and it had aligned financial interest with its independent butlers. The parties often did not spell out the details of their relationships and formal contracts, but left these details to be governed by mutual understanding. Pwede ba yun? No? Kaya hinighlight ko to eh. In some cases, system participants operated under outmoded contracts that included terms inconsistent with their actual behavior. Kaya question mark ka agad to eh, no? Pagdating na sa contractual relationships. And contractual relationships are very important. Why? Because even if you belong to the same group, but when it comes to transfer pricing audit, you are treated as a separate entity. That's why there should be a formal written contract that is governed by the law, especially civil law, no? We have to follow that. And of course, that contract would also follow the forms and the substance, no? Hindi yung gawa-gawa lang or just for formality's sake. Anong oras na, Hari?
57 minutes pa lang.
Lahat ng relo mo hindi na gumagana. Pati yung doon sa kwarto ko. Kailan mo lang yan binili?
May battery lang.
Oo, kailan mo lang yan binili? Bago lang yan. Pati yung sa kwarto ko hindi rin gumagana. Okay. Ito ang masaklap dito sa lahat, no? In some cases, system participants operated under outmoded contracts that included terms inconsistent with their actual behavior. Yan ang dito ako believe sa transfer pricing because transfer pricing is economic taxation. It deals not only with the contracts, no, or the formalities, it deals with the activities, the actual dealings. That's why may mga findings or issues in transfer pricing na substance over form. Why? Why? Because the form is different and the substance will prevail. No? Supply point agreements. This is another consideration of the supply point agreements. No? But this is also under the contractual relationships, no? Because contractual terms are one of the comparability factors. Kaya you can just imagine na itong transfer pricing case na to, the study also deals with the comparability factors. It deals with the nature, no, and characteristic of the goods and services. Kaya meron ditong explanation. Because along the way, yung mga dinidiscuss po natin, this conforms with the transfer pricing analysis report, no? Kasi this is a result of a transfer pricing audit. Kaya alam niyo kung ilang pages ito, this is 244 pages. No? So hindi madali ang gumagawa ng transfer pricing study. No? Parang gumagawa ka na rin ng isang libro. But of course, medyo mabilis lang siya because hindi ka naman pwedeng magdagdag ng mga information mo. It is provided by the company or the actual. No? Okay. So, under the contractual relationships, going back to the comparability factors, what are the comparability factors? We have the nature of and characteristics of the goods and services, whether tangible or intangible. We have the functions, assets, and risks. We have the economic conditions. We have the business strategies and the contractual terms. So, dito sa Coke ngayon, no, nandito na tayo sa contractual relationship or the contractual terms between the related parties, no? Why? Because we have to see to it that the contractual terms are being followed and that contractual terms are arm's length. And what do we mean by arm's length? Dapat comparable siya with that of the independent party na contracts, no? Okay. So, let's go to the supply point agreements. Ano itong supply point agreements? Ito yung nagbibigay ng mga concentrate, nagsusupply ng mga materials to the butlers para gawin nila yung Coca-Cola na soft drinks, no? So, TCC was the ultimate parent of the supply points, no? So, under siya ng TCC, the Coca-Cola Company, situated in Atlanta, Georgia, no? Okay. And the contracts it executed with them often seem terse and incomplete. Yun na, no? Pagdating mo na sa, you're doing a transfer pricing study, kikita mo na kaagad, the terms are incomplete, no? So ako kasi, if gumagawa ako niyan, I try to look at, kaso lang sa experience ko I do transfer pricing audit since 2016. In my experience, kahit ikaw na yung gumagawa ng transfer pricing analysis report for the company, di rin nila pinapakita yung kanilang kontrata. Why? Because for them, that is confidential. That's why there is one company that, please, I want to see your contract for this and for this. Ayaw ipakita. Why? Because I have to review sana all the provisions and then recommend to them na this is not arm's length. No? Pero hindi pinapakita. No? So in that case, if you are the transfer pricing analyst, then you will just only focus on your opinion dun lang sa documents available to you. Kasi during the transfer pricing audit, pagka may mga documents dyan na presented to the transfer pricing officer, and then magkaroon ng findings, then it's up to them. Kasi hindi naman yan available during the time that the transfer pricing analyst make a transfer pricing analysis report. Indeed, petitioner could not, anong sabi dito? TCC was the ultimate parent of the supply points and the contract it executed with them often seem terse and incomplete. No? So that's the findings of the court. Kasi court decision na to eh. Indeed, petitioner could not locate any written agreement, wala pang written agreement, with the Egyptian supply point. No? So wala. Kaya nga yung Egyptian supply point is always net loss. Pero yun pala, walang agreement doon o kaya tinatago lang. The agreement that existed during 2007 to 2009, 2007 and 2009 is the taxable year under dispute or under audit with the IRS, no? Or the subject of this appeal. So the agreements that existed during 2007 and 2009 reflected an amalgamation of several, often overlapping, prior contracts and amendments thereto, no? So over time, the text of most contracts converged, making it possible to generalize about the parties' rights and obligations. So we discussed below the prevailing terms of these agreements, noting deviations where appropriate. Ayan. Kasi sometimes, no, hindi mo talaga ma-perfect. They are very good in strategizing on their distribution and marketing. Pagdating naman sa contractual terms, doon sila na kulang. Okay. So, number one point of consideration that we are going to analyze here is the rights and obligations. The agreements granted the supply points the rights to produce and sell concentrate in accordance with TCC specifications. Sino itong supply points? Ito yung pag-aari din ni TCC or the Coca-Cola Company na sila yung nagsusupply ng mga concentrates papunta sa butlers para i-manufacture na as soft drinks. The supply points were authorized to use TCC's intangible property. Ano yung intangible property ng TCC's? Yung kanyang brand, trademark, logo, no? Yung pinakita ko sa inyo kanina. In connection with their production and selling rights. So ano yan? Ipoproduce nila yan at ibenta yung Coke. Paano nila i-produce? I-exploit nila yung concentrate, gamitin nila yung formula, and then gamitin nila yung mga bote, gamitin nila yung pangalan, no? So they have to exploit. Okay. They generally lack any contractual ownership interest in TCC's trademarks or other intangible property, and they own little or no intangible property of their own. Siyempre, kasi yung intangibles na yun, owned by the Coca-Cola company yun. So sila, butlers, no? May agreement sila with the supply points. So, sa footnote natin, Atlantic, which own the Costa Rican and Swazi supply points, hindi siya pag-aari ng the Coca-Cola Company, no? Yung Costa Rican and Swazi, owned siya ng Atlantic. But this Atlantic is also a controlled corporation of Coca-Cola. So, hindi siya directly na owned by Coca-Cola, pero owned siya ng Atlantic, which is also a related party of Coca-Cola. No? As disregarded CFS or controlled foreign corporations, and the Egyptian and Irish supply points as branches, no? So yung Costa Rican and Swazi, sila yung mga supply points, tapos yung Egyptian at saka Irish, yun yung branch nila, also as supply points. Was the registered owner of some trademarks in some jurisdictions with respect to Canada, no? Canada Dry, Crush, and Dr. Pepper beverages. Atlantic was also the registered owner of the Sweepers and Cosmos trademarks in most jurisdictions. So malaki din yung Atlantic. But none of these supply points had any ownership interest, direct or indirect, in any trademarks relating to the company's core brands. The Brazilian supply point at one time had rights to sub-license TCC's trademarks to select butlers. No, imagine, yung Brazilian na supply, very powerful siya, no? Nakaka-sub-license siya ng trademark ng Coca-Cola. No? So, production and sale of concentrate. So, paano pinoproduce at saka binibenta yung concentrate? The concentrate is the one na ginagawa na soft drinks, no? Supply points production rights consisted of the right to produce intermediary products, variously defined as concentrate, syrups, and or beverage base, no? Kasi pag ginawa na nila to, dagdagan na lang ng tubig, no? Yun na yung nilagay sa bottle. We use the terms products and concentrate interchangeably because the products are also the concentrate, no? The agreement distinguished products from beverages which were produced by bottlers using products as an ingredient. At no time did any supply point produce finished beverages, no? So yung supply points, ang binibenta niya talaga yung concentrate. The supply points agreed to undertake production of concentrate in accordance with TCC's standards and instructions. TCC ensured compliance with its standards by reserving the right to inspect the methods of preparation and packaging on the premises of the supply point at all reasonable times. No? Pag sinabi mo at all reasonable times, nandyan yan sa contract. Compliance with TCC standards required the supply points to obtain secret ingredients. No, may secret ingredients pa. Formulas and specifications from TCC. Most contracts expressly granted the supply point the right to purchase secret ingredients, but no agreement specified any maximum price that TCC could charge. Therefore, imagine ka, tama ba yun? Kompleto ba yun na ang agreement mo walang price? Most of the agreements included a covenant requiring the supply point to protect the secrecy of TCC's production know-how. So very particular lang sila yung non-disclosure at saka yung protection ng TCC's know-how. Pero meron ba yan na no agreement specified in maximum price? Imagine wala silang agreement about it. Yun ang pinaka-importante, no? Yung price. Okay. TCC's agreements with its Irish and Mexican supply points included a provision nominally authorizing them to manufacture finished beverages. In practice, neither they nor any other supply point ever did this. Oh, so, hindi naman ginawa, pero nandun sa kontrata. The supply point shall not at any time reveal. Ito yung sinasabi na close doon sa contract. The supply point shall not at any time reveal any information with reference to the formula or ingredients of the products without the prior written approval of the company, and shall keep confidential all such formula, specifications, standards, and instructions. No? Kaya yung kanilang process talagang confidential. The contract also authorized the supply points to sell concentrate. No? So, inallow din yung butlers to sell concentrate. As a rule, however, they were permitted to sell concentrate only to butlers that had an existing contract with DCCC. The contracts with the Mexican, Chilean, and Costa Rican supply points permitted them to sell concentrate only as requested by the company and at prices set or revised by the company. The contracts themselves did not specify any formula or guidelines for pricing concentrate. We discussed the subject in connection with thesis agreements with its butlers. No, see in from page 61 to 66. Each supply point agreed to keep full and accurate account of all products sold by it and to make that account and relevant invoices available for inspection by TCCs at all reasonable time. So, yun lang po yung nakalagay. No? Okay. Next is the trademarks. No? So this is under the contractual terms. Except in case of the Brazilian affiliate, the agreements granted the supply points no rights or ownership interest in TCC's trademarks. No? Kasi ang TCC lang talaga ang may-ari ng trademarks. No? Only the TCC owns the trademarks. The agreements identify TCC as the owner or registered proprietor of the trademarks, and TCC expressly reserved the rights to control all things and acts related to or involving the use of the trademarks. So only the TCC reserve or control all the things and acts related to trademarks. No? The Irish and Swansea supply points were also permitted to sell concentrate to other parties authorized by the company to use the products and the trademarks in connection therewith. No, so yung Swansea supply points, pwede siya magbenta ng concentrate to other parties provided those other parties have existing contract also with the Coca-Cola company. No? So the supply points agreed not to do any act or thing which may impair the ownership and protection of the trademarks owned by the company. Sinong company? The TCC or the Coca-Cola company. The supply point, in short, received only a limited right to use the trademarks in connection with its production and sales activities. So unlike the other supply points, the Brazilian supply point was originally allowed to contract with butlers, and to that end, it was permitted to sub-license the use of TCC trademarks. The Brazilian supply point was authorized with the approval of the company and export to make contracts with butlers in which the right to bottle the beverage is granted, but only in conformity with the specification, formula, instructions, and standards given from time to time by the company. Upon termination of the Brazilian supply point agreement, all contracts and sub-licenses executed with butlers involving the use of the company's trademarks were to vest and inure the benefit of the company. The Brazilian supply point explicitly acknowledged that a sub-license will not in any way affect the property rights of the company concerning its trademarks, which continue to be the company exclusive property. The Brazilian supply point was the only supply point that executed agreement sub-licensing to butlers the use of TCC trademarks. No? In its case, TCC was listed in the agreement as a party interveniente, no? Or intervening party, thus acknowledging its consent to the sub-license. In October 2007, no, this is the year of under audit. In October 2007, TCCC executed new agreements with all butlers that held outstanding contracts showing the Brazilian supply points as a counterparty. The new agreements which show TCC as the sole counterparty appear to have displaced those earlier agreements and thus effectively canceled the Brazilian supply point sub-licensing authority. So, nawala na yung authority for the Brazilian company to sub-license. No? So number 2, term, length, and exclusivity. No, we're still discussing the contractual terms. The Brazilian supply point agreement ran indefinitely but could be terminated by TCC, unilateral action, or either party's breach of contract. The other supply point agreements have an initial 12-month term, except the Costa Rica agreement, which had an initial 2-month term. And all of them renewed automatically for 1-year periods absent prior notice from TCC or the supply point. Agreements with 3 of the supply points, Mexico, Swaziland, and Ireland, provided that during any 12-month term, either party could terminate the agreement for any reason upon giving 30 or 60 days notice to the other party. No supply point was granted exclusive territorial rights. Each agreement described a territory, usually the supply point domestic market, in which the supply point was expected to operate. But during the tax years at issue, and or many years previously, no supply point limited its concentrate sales to the geographical territory in which its manufacturing facility was located. Supply points regularly sold concentrate to butlers in other supply points, domestic markets. And due to the company aggressive consolidation of concentrate production, the 7 supply points during 2007 to 2009 sold concentrate to butlers doing business in 150 different countries. No? So you can just imagine that how big the companies, and autonomous regions such as Hong Kong, no? Kasi ang Hong Kong is autonomous region yan. Kahit dito sa Pilipinas, we also have autonomous region, no? Yung ARMM. No supply point was granted any right, expressed or implied, to guaranteed production of Coca-Cola products, no? To record, reflect dozen of production shifts among supply points between 1980 and 2011. In hardly any cases was the entity that lost production compensated by TCCC or by the supply point that took over its production for the loss of income it thus suffered. No? So, walang supply point daw na nagpo-produce ng Coca-Cola kasi ang role ng supply point is to sell the concentrate, no? Number 3, still related to contractual terms. Remuneration. Ano yung remuneration? This is the compensation. And when you do the transfer pricing analysis, remuneration is very important because you can generate a transfer pricing issue about remuneration, especially if during the agreement or whatever would be the agreement between these related parties, the remuneration or compensation is not arm's length. Meaning, masyado siyang maliit, the consideration is so small or too big, no? Kaya very important po yung remuneration when it comes to contractual terms. Why? Because in this case sa Coca-Cola, in some contracts, they fail to disclose the remuneration, no, or the compensation. Kaya ang sabi ng IRC, the Internal Revenue Service, that the contracts executed by Coca-Cola are non-enforceable because there is no consideration. No? Kasi ito yung remuneration or consideration, this is very important in contract. You cannot enforce a contract na wala naman pala, walang consideration. Ano yung consider nyo? No? So as in, there is no obligation yung other party. Although TCC used the 10-50-50 method to compute royalties payable by the supply points, ano tong 10-50-50 method to compute royalties? Ito yung bayad for the use of those intangibles. No? Payable by the supply points. Sino yung supply points? Ito yung nagsusupply ng mga Coca-Cola concentrate to the butlers. And yung butlers naman, sila yung gumagawa na ng soft drinks. No? So it never incorporated any aspect of that formula into its written supply points agreement. Agreements with the Chilean and Costa Rican supply points included no discussion of payment whatever. No? Take note of that. Walang discussion on payment. So meron ba gano'n, may kontrata ba na walang payment? Only the Swazi agreement described a multinational territory covering much of sub-Saharan Africa. Yun yung Swazi. In practice, butlers in that region purchase concentrate from the Irish and Egyptian supply points as well. No? May shout out?
Meron po, ma'am.
Oh, sige.
Shoutout po kay Ma'am Lilia
Oh,
Fernando.
si Ma'am
Nanonood
Lilian.
po siya.
Yaw. Okay, so shout out sa iyo, Ma'am Lilian, and thank you for watching. No? This is very important po. We are discussing now the service agreement po ng Coca-Cola. No? So this is very important because di ba requirement na ngayon yung attachment to the BIO form, yung 1709 form as attachment to the annual income tax return. Kaya kung you have clients and you think na may mga related parties sila, ang advice ko is for you to make now a proposal, no? Kasi kung gagawa kayo, March, it's too late na, ha? It's too late. Magpe-February na. Kami ngayon, may mga proposal na kami at na, mga na-approve na. So we start working already. Kasi pagka February yan or March, it's too late, no? Filing na, wala nang tulugan yan. Tapos isingit mo pa itong transfer pricing. Kasi tingnan nyo, ang documentation lang ng transfer pricing, very, very long. No? Kaya siguro itong mga kagaya nito, mga service agreements, pagawa nyo sa legal because team po talaga yung gumagawa ng transfer pricing analysis. But you have to see to it also na ikaw yung transfer pricing analyst, alam mo para hindi kulang yung mga disclosure na gagawin ng legal team. No? Okay. So agreements with the Chilean and Costa Rican supply points included no discussion of payment whatever. So meron ba ganyan na yung agreement niyo walang payment, no? So how are you compensated? The Mexican supply point agreement specified a royalty computed as a percentage of operating profit. The Irish and Swazi supply point agreement specified a royalty computed as a percentage of concentrate sales. So iba-iba ang consideration na. The Brazilian supply point had agreement that inconsistently recited a one-time royalty of $100. Oh, $100 ang royalty. This version was registered with the Brazilian Trademark Office. Is it arm's length? Kaya dito natalo yung Coke eh. Meron bang one-time royalty na 100? At saka if you try to look at yung previous, binenta nila, di ba Hari? Yung ano doon, yung trademark ng $1. No? Is it arm's length? No? So yun din yung sabi natin na kahit anong talino mo minsan nandyan pa rin yung pagkabobo mo, no? 'Di ba sa tao ganun din, no? Kaya gustong-gusto ko yung Smart Tips by Mama Elsa, ito about values, about time, no? Kasi napakatalino man ng tao, nandyan pa rin yung pagkabobo niya, no? Siguro ano 'yan, kasama din sa buhay, no? We have to accept that. Kaya dito, talo yung Coke dito. You can just imagine a multinational companies with all napakaganda ng mga strategies. Pagdating dito na nawala sila, no? Nawala talaga. No? And an ongoing de facto royalty embedded in the cost of ingredients purchased from TCC. Imagine one-time royalty of $100 and yung brand mo, yung product mo are earning billions. Magbabayad ka lang ng royalty ng $100. Paano yan? It does not appear that TCC or the supply points paid much, if any, attention to these remuneration clauses. Siguro pinabayaan lang nila yun. They do not pay attention on that, no? Kasi yung dealings iba naman eh. Several supply points paid petitioner a headquarters fee, the pro rata. O pro rata. Hindi pa sinabi. To calculate these payments, petitioner quantified all headquarter expenses that supported multiple foreign affiliates. Petitioner then allocated these expenses to participating supply points under a complex formula. Talagang pinahirapan nila, no? Subject to the proviso that no supply point would be allocated pro rata in excess the amount that would be tax deductible in its local jurisdiction. So, dito na pumasok yung they think about taxes, no? Kasi may mga ginawa sila din dito na to minimize payment of taxes. The Brazilian and Egyptian supply points did not participate in the pro rata regime at all. The Irish supply points paid about 1 billion, no? Imagine yung Irish paid 1 billion and the other four supply points collectively paid about 500 million of pro rata during the tax years at issue. So iba-iba. Petitioner credited all of these payments against the supply points royalty obligation under the 10-50-50 method, as had been permitted under its 1996 closing agreements with the IRS. The details of the pro rata arrangement were not spelled out and sometimes were not even mentioned in the supply points agreements with TCC. Okay? You can imagine that the remuneration is not mentioned in the contract. No? And ito pa yung isa, yung sa Brazilian supply points na 100 one-time royalty fee. No? Okay. So next, still in the contractual terms, no? The service company agreements. TCC contracted typically through export with at least 60 servcos doing business throughout the world. No? The servcos, ito yung service companies, perform local consumer marketing and supervise relationship with local butlers. No? So sila yung nagma-market. TCC or export, generally executed with its servco. TCC, the Coca-Cola company, ito yung based sa Atlanta, Georgia. Ito namang export, this is another subsidiary. No? Generally executed with its servco, a written agreement employing a standard template that was modified slightly over the years. Neither party disputes that these contracts reflected arm's length terms and compensation. No? Standard terms. Virtually all of the agreement run between the servco and TCC or export. The standard template for these agreements included a boilerplate, boilerplate preamble. Preamble yung intro, no? The only apparent exception to this rule involved the Costa Rican supply point, which had agreements with 8 servcos through the end of 2009. Ano yung year under audit natin? 2007 to 2009, 3 years. One of its counterparties, the Costa Rican servco, subcontracted to provide services to the Ecuadorian servco and to receive services from the Colombian servco. No, sila-sila lang mga related party transactions. No, kaya nga malaki yung related party transactions dito because it covers the whole world operations. No? So ano yung preamble niya? A generic description of services provided and a confidentiality clause. No? Nando doon sa kanyang preamble. The preamble typically stated that TCC or export engaged the servco because of its expertise and know-how on the production and marketing of the beverages, including sales, advertising, promotion, and business development. Ito na yung nasa kontrata, ha? Most agreements specified a 1-year term, which was renewed indefinitely absent notice from either party of its intent to terminate. So, you can just imagine, parang one-sided or biased na agreement. Kasi, one-year term, tapos renewed indefinitely, absent notice from either party of its intent to terminate. Parang, gusto mo na, so bukas pagsabi mo na, terminate na kaagad kasi without any notice no? So the servco typically agreed to supply services that included advice regarding marketing, advertising, and sales promotion. That's why po during the transfer pricing audit, ang mga reason for disallowance or findings also of the tax authority such that wala siyang business, wala siyang commercial rationality, no? Commercially irrational, walang reason na commercial or walang business, walang substance, no? Yung walang business reason ang transaction. That's why it is being disallowed, no? As if wala. Kagaya nito, meron ba to na yung term is renewed indefinitely and then without notice from its party? Parang walang sense, no? The servco typically agreed to supply services that included advice regarding marketing, advertising, and sales promotion. Most agreements executed after 2006 stated explicitly that the ServCo who discharged this task by working with third-party marketing service providers. ServCos agreed to make recommendations as to whether the company should participate, make a financial contribution to Butler's trade marketing expenditures, and to perform research concerning regulatory, technical, and marketing conditions that might affect beverage sales in the local jurisdiction. They also agreed to perform a variety of computer-related and other back-office functions. No? So, the standard agreement included two remunerations clauses. Ano yung clause? Which together provided Sercos with cost plus compensation. The first clause generally stated that the service recipient, typically export, would reimburse or cost to be reimbursed at cost the expenses incurred by the ServCo attributable to the services under this agreement. Generally speaking, expenses were netted against any income of similar character before being reimbursed. Reimbursable expenses were determined in accordance with local accounting principles and generally excluded any income taxes incurred by the ServCo. The second remuneration clause stated that the ServCo would be paid a markup on certain expenses described in the first clause. These percentage markups varied among the agreements from the low of 5% to a high of 12%, with the average markup being between 6 and 7%. These markup expenses, when charged to export or other service recipient, were typically denominated fees and commissions. No? Okay. Most agreements provided that the ServCo would be paid no markup on direct marketing expenses, or DME, which included amounts paid to third-party marketing professionals such as advertising agencies, media companies, and creative design firms. The effect of this provision was generally to deny the ServCo any markup on third-party marketing costs, which typically constituted its largest category of expenses. For reasons not explained in the record, this provision is absent from many Latin American ServCo agreements. Kaya matagal mag-audit ng transfer pricing audit, no? Sige, I don't know, ilang years nila itong natapos kasi this is 2007 and 2009. And nasa Court of Tax Appeal pa lang to 2020, no? So, in 2020, 2009, 11, 12 years, no? 11 years. You can just imagine, no? 11 years. In 2008, the company contracted with Ernst & Young, no? Accounting firm, to analyze the services provided by ServCos to export. Ernst & Young agreed to prepare a master platform document, no? So, my master platform document. Yeah. Take note natin yan. Kasi, I will be doing my advanced transfer pricing book, no? So, kasama yan. Kaya di-discuss natin. Master platform document. Alam niyo, the accountants would be, kung yung accountant talaga na sinusundan niya yung kliyente, you learn also a lot from your clients. No? That would provide, ito ano yung ginawa, master platform document, that would provide a basis for transfer pricing reports that ServCos were required to file with their local taxing jurisdiction. Parang ngayon yung master file, no? Yung sa transfer pricing, kasi dati there is no transfer pricing documentation required. Ngayon meron na, no? So ito siguro yung ginawa niya, documentation, no, ng Ernst & Young. That would provide a basis for transfer pricing reports that ServCos were required to file with their local taxing jurisdiction. Ernst & Young ultimately produced two master platform documents from which it prepared about 30 local transfer pricing reports. Yan na. Yan, yung transfer pricing reports. No? Ernst & Young concluded in these documents that the cost plus compensation outlined in the ServCo agreements was within an arm's length range. Kasi yun yung talagang trabaho mo if you are the accountant. If you are tasked with the documentation, you have to make effort and show that your clients conforms with the arm's length principle. No? Otherwise, anong purpose mo? Bakit ka pinagawa ng documentation? Actually, ang ginawa ng Ernst and Young dito, transfer pricing documentation. No? So, 30 local transfer pricing reports yung ginawa niya. No? Tsaka ang mahal niyan. Okay. So, anong sabi niya dito? Ernst and Young concluded in these documents that the cost plus compensation outlined in the Servco agreements was within an arm's length range. So, yan na yung recommendation niya na arm's length yung remuneration. In support of this conclusion, A and Y noted that TCCC controlled the Servco's annual budgets, provided major inputs to their marketing efforts, and supplied final approval for all business plans. At trial, an Ernst & Young partner testified that all of these transfer pricing reports were written based on the Servco contracts and the cost-plus nature of the service provided by the Servcos, which he described as the exact standard required under the transfer pricing analysis paradigm in effect in every country at that time. No? So, yan ang justification ng Ernst & Young. Kasi, ito po ang mangyayari. If you are the one who prepare a transfer pricing report or analysis and then it is attached to your annual income tax returns, and then during the tax audit, pag nakarating na yung case sa court, you will also be called to testify, no? Ano yung naging basis mo in your recommendation. Kaya hindi din po madali. Kaya if you try to look at mas mahal ang singil ng accountant sa transfer pricing report analysis compared to the ordinary na or the routine financial statement reports, no? Mas mahal. Why? Kasi mas mabusisi yan at saka talagang ano yan na makakarating ng court yung gawa mo. And then you will be asked to testify. And then why is it that you give an opinion that the transaction is arm's length, no? So in this case, hindi nanalo dito yung Ernst & Young, no? Because the IR is here, the Internal Revenue Service hired an industry expert, no? At yung mga sinasabi lahat nila dito were turned down by the expert, and then justified yung IRS to make an additional assessment. No? Other provisions still in the contract. Shortly before the tax years in issue, several new provisions were introduced into Servco agreements, chiefly in Europe. Petitioner attributed these variations to local tax planning undertaken by the company. Many agreements executed after 2003 include a new clause explaining the level of risk assumed by the Servco and clarifying the ownership of assets generated by its marketing efforts and those of the third-party marketing professionals with whom it contracted. No? A typical version of the clause read as follows. Servco acknowledges that it does not take entrepreneurial risk in developing marketing concept because the marketing advice provided by Servco is within the strategic guidelines established by expert for the brands. Servco also acknowledges that any marketing concepts developed by third-party vendors are the property of expert. So ito yung clause, no? Ito yung nakalagay doon sa mismong kontrata, no? Okay. A variation of the first sentence appearing in the more recent agreements states that the Servco assume no entrepreneurial risk because the marketing is contracted by the Servco with third-party service providers and is within TCC's strategic guidelines. So anong sabi niya dito? Walang risk ang Servco. Petitioner's witnesses testified that this reservation clause was added to the agreements in order to minimize the risk that the Servco would be treated by local tax authorities as creating in that country a permanent establishment of TCC. Anong tax implication if you are a permanent establishment? If you are a permanent establishment in a certain country, you will be considered as a branch, and any income that you derive in that country will be taxed, no, as branch, no, or a foreign supply point. Whatever its purpose, this reservation clause ultimately appeared in 29 of the 37 Servco agreements executed after 2004. No? So may mga agreements na lumabas noong 2004. The company added another layer of tax planning to agreements executed with servcos in the EU. Ito pa pala, no, na insert ko lang. Isang findings na nakita also ng Internal Revenue Service is that meron na silang agreement as to the pricing, yung 10-50-50 rule nga, hanggang noong 1996, no? Pero itong under assessment ngayon is 2007 to 2009, no? So ano sabi ng TCC dito? Bakit inabandon ng Internal Revenue Service yung kanilang agreement before? Bakit? Kasi nakita din ng Internal Revenue Service or ng Tax Authority na meron na rin silang mga ginawang ibang scheme or strategies after that 1996, just like nito. No? This is already after 1996, ha? Kasi yung 1996, that was their agreement. Pero meron silang mga nakitang clauses dito sa agreement that was executed after 2004. So tapos na yung agreement na yun, na yung 10-50-50 rule. May mga bago silang agreement na ini-insert sa kanilang mga kontrata. No? Okay. Ano sabi dito sa contract? Whatever its purpose, the reservation clause appeared in 29 of the 37 Servco agreements executed after 2004. So the company added another layer of tax planning to agreements executed with Servcos in the EU. Those companies were generally subject to value-added tax in their home country and were required to include VAT on their invoices to export, a U.S. company. Export would generally be eligible for refund of the VAT, but such refunds could often be delayed for months or years. Kasi di ba anong rule natin sa VAT? Sa export, wala na VAT, zero rated siya. Ang VAT sa local sales. Okay. Ano yung CCS? Coca-Cola Services. Subsidiary also of Coca-Cola in the EU, no? Sa Europe. To mitigate this problem, export internalize its intra-EU service transactions by interposing a Belgian affiliate. Yan ay yung ginagawa, no? Narinig ko na yan sa isang accountant, no? Ng isang accountant ng multinational group na ito yung magiging tax strategies mo. You complicate the structure. You make another company instead na direct siya i-redirect mo. Ang nakikita ko naman is kayang-kaya na yan cure ng transfer pricing, no? So, ito na nga yung mga findings. Kaya yung mga sinasabi nila na another transaction interposing a Belgian affiliate, ginawa lang nila yun sa conduit company. So, ano nangyayari? Pagdating ng transfer pricing audit, dinidisallow din. No? So, to mitigate this problem, export internalize its intra-EU service transactions by interposing a Belgian affiliate is a Coca-Cola Services NV, CCS, between it and other servcos in the EU. No? Export executed a master service agreement, no? So, may master service agreement with CCS. Ano yung CCS? Coca-Cola Services. Sa Europe yan. And CCS executed subcontracts with the servcos doing business in the EU. Ano nila dito? Anong purpose? Para minimize sila ng payment ng value-added tax, no? Stephen Wally, the company's General Tax Counsel during 1996 to 2008. So, pasok siya dito sa year under examination, yung 2007 to 2009, no? So, pasok. Testified that the interposition of CCS between the servcos and export allowed servcos to zero rate their services, thus avoiding the need to file VAT refund claims. No? Okay, nag-zero rate siya. Okay. Exports Master Service Agreement. Exports Master Service Agreements with CCS generally resemble TCC's standard servco contract. However, CCS was allowed no markup on the fees it paid to the local servcos for their services. Arm's length ba yan? Kaya nilagyan ko kaagad ng question mark eh. Yun bang, kaya ito yung ayaw ipakita ng mga companies, no? Their contracts. Kasi makikita mo kaagad on the provisions if it is arm's length, no? Ang bilis lang talaga eh. Kaya nga may mga offers sa akin ngayon to review their transfer pricing documentation, to review their transfer pricing analysis report. Madali mo lang naman makita eh, no? Kasi kagaya nito, sabi nga ng iba, transfer pricing is just common sense, no? So, meron ba niyan na no markup on the fees at saka yung payment para sa services, wala? It's not arm's length. Why? Because you are doing service, you should be remunerated. Yan ang independent transactions. Gawa ka lang ng gawa, hindi ka babayaran, how will you survive? No? Tayo, hari. Lecture tayo ng lecture, paano tayo magsusurvive? Hindi tayo binabayaran. No? Parang pagdating sa transfer pricing audit, hindi din tayo papasa. No? Kaya sabi ng German client natin, no, you should not offer a free seminar. It's very costly. It should be with a fee. Okay. Sino babayad sa atin yung YouTube? Dami tayong subscribers. Okay. And the master agreement included a robust reservation clause concerning ownership of intangible assets generated by the local servcos, marketing efforts, and by the Belgian R&D unit. Actually, yun pong pagbibigay namin ng mga free seminars, no? That is one way of saying thank you sa ating mga subscribers, no? Because it is only through our free seminars na nagkakaroon po tayo ng mga subscribers. So, it is one way of saying thank you. Instead of we do some gimmick, we do some raffles, we do some yung pambayad po namin sa gratitude na that you subscribe to our channel is our free seminars, no? Okay. And our partnership program with YouTube on their ads. Yun na lang. Okay. Servco or CCS, tiyagaan lang po talaga sa YouTube, no? Yung iba na gusto agad sumikat. If you try to look at some YouTubers, yung iba, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, swerte na lang yung within 2 months nakakapag-monetize na sila. Pero others na talagang hindi naman artista, no, mga small YouTubers, talagang they started small, no? Tapos lumaki na ng lumaki. Kaya don't get rich overnight, no? Talagang ang buhay ay nakukuha sa tiyaga. Pagka hindi ka magtiyaga, wala kang nilaga, no? Mahirap i-English yun, kaya hindi ko na i-English yun. Ano yun sa English, Hari? Yung pag walang tiyaga, walang nilaga, ano yun?
No.
No tiyaga, no patience.
Hardship, no earn.
No earn. Kaya yun ang sa atin na English please, okay lang yun, but there are terms na Tagalog na mas you feel na mas maganda sabihin, but you cannot translate to English, no? So, okay. So, let's go back to the export master service agreement with the CCS or the Coca-Cola services, no? Ito na yung sinasabi ko na they are not arm's length. Why? Kasi the master agreement include robust reservation clause concerning ownership of intangible assets generated by the local servcos marketing efforts and by the Belgian R&D unit. Ano tong Belgian R&D unit? Ito yung sa Belgian affiliate, no? Na ginawa nila, which is a conduit company. Servco CCS acknowledges that any marketing concepts developed by third-party vendors or any affiliate of Coca-Cola that provide services to Servco are the property of export, no? So any intangibles arising of the research and development activities of Servco are the property of export. But export, if you try to look at, is also owned by Coca-Cola. Ito pa, other consideration, itong invoicing, no? Meron sila dito na split invoicing which the IRS also found na nag-save sila ng payment of taxes, no? Yung split invoicing. Petitioner employed a complicated and not entirely transparent system to make intercompany charges on account of services rendered by the ServCos. No? So pagka hindi ka transparent, kulang-kulang yung documentation mo, then it is a potential transfer pricing issue, potential assessment ng Coca-Cola. No? Most ServCo agreements stated that the ServCo, just na ba?
Apologies na po, pero 1 hour 49 minutes.
Okay. Sige. Tuloy pa tayo ha. Wala nang shoutout.
Meron po si Ma'am RG.
Hala, Ma'am RG, yung exam mo kailan? No? Anyway, wala pa din nag-confirm eh. Pero yung isang participant, mag-ano na siya, yung willing na siya na kumuha, no? Kaya you just email to me kung kaya mo na, no? Kumuha. Okay. Shout out to Miss RG and thank you for watching. Meron pa?
Wala na po, ma'am.
Okay. Ilan na yung viewers natin?
9 viewers.
Okay. Sige. Miss RG, yung ating discussion is about Coca-Cola. Andito na tayo sa mga strategies niya, sa mga contracts. Kasi di po ba yung tinuro ko sa inyo is we have the 5 comparability factors. No? We have the 5 comparability factors, yung nature and services, nature and characteristics of goods and services, whether tangible or intangible. We have the functions, assets, and risks. We have the economic conditions. We have contractual terms. We have the business strategies. Yung dinidiscuss natin ngayon, yung contractual terms ng Coca-Cola, no? With the group. Okay. Kaya yung sinasabi ko sa inyo that you memorize the 5 comparability factors because when you make a transfer pricing analysis and during the transfer pricing audit, doon magre-revolve ang findings, no, ng tax authority. Kaya dito, tinitingnan dito yung contracts. Ano ba yung mga laman ng contracts? Kasi pagkaalanganin yung mga contracts mo, disallow. No? So, invoicing na natin sa invoicing are also regulated, So, regulated yung invoicing. Kasi kagaya sa Pilipinas, 'di ba, meron tayong invoicing requirements for VAT, no? That it should show the separate amount for the VAT and the receipt should be printed by accredited printers and valid only for 5 years, no? So, invoicing. Petitioner employed a complicated and not entirely transparent system to make intercompany charges on account of services rendered by the ServCos. So, not entirely transparent. No? So, questionable na kaagad. Most ServCo agreements stated that the ServCo shall invoice the service recipient typically export. No? So, export daw ang invoice mo in the formal local currency. Ano ba ang export? Diba pag export sale ka, you are zero-rated sale and no output but there is input, no? For export. The agreement specify no deadlines and it is unclear whether any actual invoices were ever prepared. Alam nyo sino ang may lapses dito? The tax consultant, no? That's why there is also one case yung SIH yata o yung kay Isis Ramos na report hari. That is one case also na lapses talaga ng tax consultant, no? And it cost the client millions, no? Kaya be careful with your tax consultants also. Kasi dito, nagka-lapses siya dito, because the agreement specify no deadlines and it is unclear whether any actual invoices were ever prepared. Dito nag-umpisa yung nag-introduce sila ng conduit, yung Belgian affiliate. No? So, nagkaloko-loko na. In practice, BU leadership or business units leadership and finance personnel. Alam niyo ano po itong BU at saka yung OG? BU is a business units and OG is the operations group. They are not business entity. No? Mga team lang sila, parang division lang sila ng headquarters. That's why during the transfer pricing study, gusto ng Coca-Cola na i-recognize sila as an entity. They were not recognized as an entity kasi under lang sila ng TCCC, no? Pero they are acting as if they are, no? So in practice, BU leadership and finance personnel initiated intercompany charges that placed on the books of its supply point as they determined to be appropriate, no? An allocated portion of the amounts that the serve cost, including CCC's charge to export. Supply points were thus charged an allocated share of the serve cost, fees, and commissions, markup cost plus an allocated share of the serve cost third-party marketing expenses. Petitioner has pointed no document, yan na, in the record by which any supply point except perhaps the Irish supply point explicitly agreed to bear financial responsibility for these charges. Parang walang, excuse me, parang walang nag-agree in these charges. The record includes, excuse me, okay, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na not a valid contract because it lack consideration. Oh. The record includes a January 1, 1998 agreement whereby Atlantic agreed on behalf of the Irish Supply Point, its branch, to make available funds to export for reimbursement of the expenses of the serve cost and for payment of the service fees charged by the serve cost. The agreement also stated that Atlantic shall act as paymaster for defraying expenses such as marketing, advertising, and promotional expenses incurred or to be incurred within the territory serviced. There is no evidence establishing that these agreements, which had a one-year term, remained in effect during 2007 and 2009. This is the year under audit. As petitioner notes, the agreement is less than 2 pages long and is composed largely of various clauses. No? Petitioner acknowledges that the agreement does little to explain the parties' relationship or Atlantic Industries' role and asserts that it was not a valid contract because it lacked considerations. No? So yun yung sabi ng IRS. No? Yung pinapakita nila na kontrata is not a valid contract because it has no consideration. Kasi kahit tingnan mo na no, sa civil law natin, sa obligations and contracts, di ba? There must be a consideration para buo yung obligasyon. Kasi anong obligation mo dito eh, wala ka namang babayaran. No? Okay. Oras na.
1:57.
Okay. Sige, tapusin natin tong ano na to. Topic. Okay, so the method for allocating SERVCO fees and direct marketing expenses to supply points is not explained in any document. Okay, you can just imagine a very crucial function hindi na-explain in any document, no? Kasi ano to eh, direct marketing expenses, imagine how much yung kanilang mga ginagawang marketing expenses, tapos walang document. Petitioners' witnesses testified that the allocations were based on the matching principles, no? On the principle that the expenses should be matched to revenues. In theory, a supply point was supposed to be allocated fees and DME expense and DME charged by a particular SERVCO depending on how much concentrate that supply point sold to butlers in the geographic markets for which that SERVCO was responsible. Thus, if a supply point sold concentrate to butlers in 30 geographic markets, it might be allocated fees and DME or direct marketing expenses charged to export by 30 separate SERVCOs. In practice, the allocation of fees and commissions and DME to the 7 supply points as percentages of their gross revenue varied widely. No? See infra pages 74 to 75. The record does not explain these discrepancies. No? So may mga discrepancies pero it was not explained. One way or another, most SERVCO charges eventually found their way onto the books of one or more supply point, but there is no evidence that the supply points receive invoices for these services. No? review the propriety of the amounts they were charged, or had any role in selecting or evaluating the services for which they were made financially responsible. In essence, the supply points were passive recipients of charges that headquarters and BU leadership put on their books. Oh, yan na yung findings, no? Okay. Passive recipient sila ng charges. Ito yung karamihan na ginagawa, no, based sa mga na review natin ng mga cases, yung dati yung management fee na basta charge yung head office, di naman nagrereklamo itong branch. Okay. Petitioner cites only one instance of a supply point exercise of review over SAVCO charges billed to it. In that case, the supply point had been billed for charges from the Russian SERVCO even though it sold no concentrate in Russia. No? So as one witness noted, this really stood out and caused them to question. No? Yan. Okay. Next is Butler Agreements. Petitioner executed formal agreements with hundreds of Coca-Cola bottlers throughout the world. Yun. Ito importante itong Butler Agreements kasi sila yung gumagawa na talaga ng soft drinks eh. In virtually all of the agreements, TCC is shown as the legal counterparty of the bottler. These arguments, like the supply point agreements, were based on templates that reflected standard terms and conditions. The principal variations among the bottler agreements involved the length of the contract term, notice periods, choice of law, and the exclusivity of rights granted. Unlike the supply point agreements, TCC's contracts with its butlers explicitly granted them long-term and generally exclusive rights to produce and sell TCC's products within their respective territories. Hindi natin ito matapos ngayon kasi ang haba nito, and this is very crucial, no? Why? Kasi Butler Agreements na to eh. Ito na yung ginagawa ng yung Coca-Cola. And we have to consider so many things. Number one, sa Butler Agreements, you have to consider the rights and obligations. So it starts with letter A, production and sale of finished beverages. O paano ba nila to? Anong agreement nila, no, on the production and sale of finished beverages? And then the use of trademarks. Bakit? Very important po yung use of trademarks dito. Why? Because ano yung result ng case na to? Yung assessment ng royalty payments. Kasi under paid yung royalties, no? Yun ang nagiging findings dito. And then, consider also the term, length, and exclusivity ng butlers, no? Butlers, kaya nga butlers agreements ito. And of course, the remuneration. How is this butler being paid? And then, ang dami kong naano dito eh. Na-learn dito sa ginawa nila, meron sinasabing incidence pricing and meron sinasabing variable pricing. Kaya this is a very good case kasi may mga ginawa sila dito na dito mo lang din maririnig, no? And ako itong split invoicing na ginawa nila. Although may mga ibang companies din na gumagawa nito, pero it is best explained in this case of Coca-Cola versus the Commissioner of Internal Revenue. Paano ginawa? Kasi ilang years to, may mga examples talaga. Paano nila ginawa yung split invoicing, no? And then, ito, marami akong question marks dito na i-explain ko sa inyo next time, no? So kailan yung next time natin, Hari?
Wednesday.
Okay. So, Wednesday po ulit tayo. So, for this discussion natin, hindi pa tayo talaga nakatapos, no? Kasi hindi pa tayo nakarating doon sa paano sila inassess, ano yung mga findings ng IRS, no? Kasi, very important na, ang binibigay natin ngayon, ito pa lang yung sa part pa lang ng ginawa ng Coca-Cola. Pagdating na sa audit, ano yung mga nagiging findings at paano dinis-allow ng tax authorities yung mga findings niya sa Coca-Cola. Yan po yung titingnan natin kasi that can also be our guide, no? Kasi when we do, at isang learnings ko dito nung sinabi, it is very important pagdating na sa court, the opinion of the industry expert, no? So, yung mga economic conditions, ang industry expert yan ang nakakaalam, yung mga functions, paano yung mga bentahan, no? uh, industry experts opinion, kaya nag-hire sila pagdating na sa korte, may independent expert, hinahire yung uh, petitioner or yung taxpayer, at meron ding hinahire ang tax authority, no? So depende kung ano yung issue na i-explain ng independent industry expert para malinawan yung case, no? Kasi um, yun pala ang role ng expert witness. Hindi para mag-side sa isang party lang, kung hindi magbibigay siya ng opinion para mas malinaw yung issue, para makagawa din ng decision or resolution yung court, no? Yung judges. Okay? Ilang oras na?
2 hours, 5 minutes po.
Okay. So may viewers pa tayo?
Meron pa ma'am 9 viewers.
Okay. So uh, with that, I would like to say thank you, no? So just a recap sa ating na discuss ngayon. Actually, napakahaba, pero saan tayo nag-umpisa? Dito sa marketing, no? Sa consumer marketing, how does Coca-Cola market its product, na doon siya nag-umpisa talaga sa consumer, no? Sa individual consumer. Kaya pag gumagawa siya ng mga strategies niya, talagang tinutumbok niya yung individual na consumer. And then doon naman sa distribution niya, and then doon na sa yung last natin na topic that we discuss is the contracts, no? Yung mga agreements nilang na mga related parties. And very important po yung contractual agreements. That's why kailangan well explain yan. Kaya kung tayo gumagawa tayo ng documentation at saka gumagawa tayo ng analysis, dapat na himay-himay natin yan, because bakit? Gagawa tayo ng recommendations, and in the case na may recommendations na tayo at nakarating sa court, no? It reaches the court, the case reaches the court, then the one who make the transfer pricing analysis will also be summoned by the court to give opinion or to give you para sa ginawa niyang analysis, no? So in this case, the Ernst & Young make a master platform documents, or yun yung sinasabi natin na transfer pricing analysis report of the 30 served companies, no, ng Coca-Cola. Okay? So with that, I would like to say thank you sa ating mga viewers. Thank you very much, and please continue to support us, and we will bring you many more cases that we will learn as the application, no, ng transfer pricing guidelines natin. Because as I said, kahit na we read and read and read repetitively the transfer pricing guidelines, no, hindi pa rin natin siya masyadong maintindihan, not unless na it is applied in a case, no? So I'd like to say thank you, and let's call it a night.